Welcome and good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are joining us for another ASTN Masterclass AI in Sport. My name is Martin Schlegel. I'm the Executive Chair of the Australian Sports Technologies Network. And today's session will be recorded and made available on the ASTN website afterwards. But before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet on today or join into this webinar today, and pay my respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Today's webinar, like so many events that we run at the ASTN, has been made possible through the support of the Victorian Department of Jobs, Skills, Industry and Regions, the Queensland Investment Corporation, their Venture Capital Development Fund, and the New Industries Funds by the Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation in Western Australia. It is also made available by a number of members of the ASTN who always join in our information sessions and gatherings. And for anybody that does not know the ASTN, we're an industry-led, not-for-profit membership organization solely dedicated to advancing and advocating on behalf of sports technology in Australia, but also globally. And so if you are interested in finding out more about an ASTN membership, our programs that are funded through the various state governments and venture capital partners, please feel free to check out the website www.astn.com.au. Now, it is my real pleasure to welcome Melissa Lawton today. She's the Chief Content Officer at SailGP. And Melissa and I met at a conference earlier this year. And when I listened to Melissa's presentation at the conference, I immediately thought that we needed to bring this conversation to our shores. One, because obviously many of you are familiar with SailGP and how they engage globally now. But as many of you will know, we have started this series about artificial intelligence and the use of artificial intelligence across various levels of sports, from high performance to the business of sport. And today's presentation will look at both of these aspects because there's so many data points, so many analytics, so many workflow automations, Melissa, that I took away from your presentation that I'm equally excited to listen to you present again. So with that, thank you again for taking the time and joining us, and over to you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always great to hear the or to head back to, I guess, the Australasian region in anything that I do. And SailGP just announced some new venues or some new places where we're going to be sailing next year, and Perth is on the calendar now, and it joins Sydney. And I think that's just a testament to how exciting the sport is, especially in Australia. So let me share my screen and we'll go through this. Happy to take questions at the end. It's a lot to take in because it's a very technologically advanced and data-driven sport. So I'm not a technologist, and I think everyone needs to understand that. I am given tools, and we use tools that involve different levels of technology, and my team apply those tools. And I think what we've done at SailGP is kept a very flexible, nimble team who are using a lot of the highest tech available to us. I'll share my screen now. Hopefully this works. You should be seeing my presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. So yeah, as I discussed, SailGP has taken a digital leap, and I think one of the biggest issues sailing has had traditionally is that when people think of sailing, and when I thought of like America's Cup when it was in Australia, in the 80s, it was something that happened out at sea. It's white sails, it's a horizon, it's beautiful weather or wild weather, but essentially a crowd of people will watch boats head off into the horizon, have an adventure, and come back. The founders of SailGP are Larry Ellison and I think one of the greatest sailors of all time. Now, one of the greatest sailors of all time, which is Sir Russell Coutts. He's a multiple America's Cup winner, gold medalist, Olympian, and Sir Russell Coutts and Larry Ellison got together after they lost the last America's Cup and said the biggest problem that we have in sailing is that, first of all, we don't know when the next event is. It's based on weather. Second of all, there's no way of reliably following a team throughout a year because of, again, weather, scheduling, and how the America's Cup was run. So they came together, and Larry Ellison, being the CTO of Oracle and a world-renowned technologist, wanted to bring peak technology to the sport so that anyone could understand it. We've done that in a number of different ways, and I think a really important aspect is also understanding that technology goes with entertainment. So we are trying to bring new fans in through entertaining content, but that content is driven by technology at its core. Right. I am going to have trouble here. So we call SailGP the most exciting race on water. The speed record is 101 kilometers per hour. We regularly hit sort of the 80s, 90s on water in racing, and the nature of the sport means we can have between 6 to 8 races in a race weekend. There's usually 4 per day. There's 5 to 7 fleet races being 12 boats racing together. And that then whittles down to a 3-boat final, winner takes all at that final. The racing we've kept short because it's very much based on data that audiences give us. We were 6 races per event, and then realized what audiences really loved, and using the data that we had available from broadcast and our digital streams, is the audiences love the start, the rounding to the first mark, and the idea that at that point, from then on, it was pure jeopardy as to who won. And we've really crafted our broadcast and the content we create around that idea of jeopardy, like anyone could win this, or any gust of wind could really change the outcome from this point. So with a race start and the shorter races, we're able to attract audiences and keep them locked on to what's going on for as long as possible. And that's really important to us for many reasons, but probably the biggest reason is sponsors being able to view their logos, their names on the boats, having those views being dedicated with eyeballs for as long as possible. And that's what we've done here. We also have, it's nation versus nation. Again, data already tells us that people love to support their home countries. We have 12 boats. The 2 newest boats this season were Brazil with a female driver. There are males and females on the boats. Sailing is a sport of skill. It's not necessarily a sport of pure strength. So we're able to have a very equitable boat. And the Brazilians, the best sailor in Brazil, happens to be female. She's at the helm, or we call her the driver of the Brazilian team. And then Red Bull have jumped on board as well with Team Italy. Team Italy is coached or owned by Jimmy Spithill, one of Australia's greatest ever sailors. So those 2 new teams, and we We can foresee in the future at least 2 teams per year joining, because this is a rapidly growing series. We have 12 events per year. If you follow SailGP in the news, we had to cancel our Brazil event because the boats are one design class, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But the one design class means that every boat is completely the same. And over the last event in San Francisco, the Australian boat exploded during racing. The mast basically broke apart. We took a really close look at that mast and found some issues. And while we did diagnostic testing and looking at repairs for that mast, we realized every single boat had to be checked. So that led to the very unexpected, very rare, but very serious cancellation of the Rio event. So our next event heads to New York. New York is becoming, one of the biggest on our calendar. We sail around Liberty Island with the Statue of Liberty in the background, and we're on Governor's Island looking back into the city. So it's super iconic venue. It's really important that people understand we're urban racing. So our race stadiums are always close, or we try and have them close to cities. Sydney being another truly urban racing scenario. San Francisco, Los Angeles, Rio again would have been that case, and as we head into the Middle East. So I think the important thing to understand is SailGP is close to shore racing. So I even say at an event like Dubai, you can almost feel as though you're going to reach out and touch the crews as they go by. And I'll show you this video so you have a better understanding of what that means.
Melissa, we're still on slide number 2.
You're still seeing slide number 2?
Yes.
Let me stop sharing and find out what's going on here. Let me stop sharing for a sec and reshare. I'm having to play, but it's, can you see that? It says SailGP there.
No, I see remote and sustainable broadcast at the moment.
Oh, it's saying it's sharing my screen, but it's actually not sharing what's on the screen. So let me escape and troubleshoot that again.
Probably if you go into presentation mode and then share, does that?
Yes. Share screen again. We did do a technical run through.
Yes, we did. We probably jinxed it that way.
Let's see. Are you seeing?
The most exciting race on the water. Yeah.
And then I press play. Are you seeing the next slide now, nation versus nation?
No.
Oh, this is bizarre.
Yep. Now I'm on nation versus.
It seems like I just have to scroll through. I don't know why it's not presenting in play mode. So I can run through that. That was nation versus nation. I think you missed that slide, which was Martine, and on the left there is Pete Burling, who is a superstar New Zealand sailor helming the New Zealand team. These are our events. Brazil down the bottom, which I just mentioned, we cancelled due to diagnostic testing on all of the wings of the boats, and New York, June 7th to 8th. We're not heading back into Australia or the Australian region until January next year. Let me play this video.
And for the first time,
Now I'm going to have an issue again. No, perfect. All right. So just to give you a taster of what SailGP looks like, it's high impact, high technology. We have enormous crowds in places like New Zealand. We have regular crashing. We have capsizing, which we don't love, but I do for social media. And it's a pretty dynamic event. Really important to the event is what you saw is augmented reality graphics, and they are data driven. And I want to sort of take this opportunity to talk about the data and the technology behind. First of all, what a lot of people don't really understand is that these boats are massive transmission devices. If you see the wing of the F50 in the middle of this diagram, you'll understand that the huge number of electronics run through that wing. Each F50 has 125 sensors on it, covering absolutely every movement and touch that's made by that boat. So in a second per boat, we have 35,000 points of data. In a race day, we have 53 billion points of data. I mean, it's just huge amounts of data being transmitted from these sensors on the boats, and they're captured by a mesh network that runs across any SailGP venue. That's why we're able to transmit within urban environments. We set up mesh nodes and we capture all of the data coming from those F50s. We almost call them, if you listen to our CTO, he calls it Internet of Things. It's basically a 100K an hour computer running on water, flying over water, I would say. In addition to this, we've added a private 5G network, and that is also sending specific pieces of data and video technology to the clouds. But most of our content is captured via cameras and helicopters. We have a local RF deployment. We have 3 boats, 3 broadcast boats, one of them with a super slow-mo camera on it. We have RF camera people around the stadium, and we have 2 helicopters. The 2 helicopters are really for redundancy. If the majority of your event is transmitted via a wide shot that covers the venue, your helicopter suddenly becomes one of the most important tools in the shed. There are no cables on site. This is not a cabled broadcast, which makes us very, very unique. But everything that we capture is sent down a fiber line to London. It's an Ealing, we call it the Ealing studio. And in London, we capture absolutely everything live with extremely low latency. Again, another sort of very revolutionary and unique part of SailGP. So our broadcast is remote. As I just said, we have a setup where we're producing 2 days of live coverage. We produce all of our long form content out of this studio. We do 60-minute highlights. We make them bespoke to different parts. We make a CBS version. We make a TNT version of the highlights. We do daily newsreels from this point. We do a documentary series. But what we also do is have this very, very flexible setup, because everything is coming into us in London. We also can run all of our social and digital operation from the same point, and everyone's receiving the same amount of information at the same time. So it's a very, I would say, cohesive unit of people working. And in most cases, people who come and visit us there note how calm it is, because we are the ones who can see more of what's happening on site than anyone else. So how is it that this data sort of translates into a very watchable sailing broadcast? We have something called Liveline. Liveline is a graphics system that takes all of those data points, crunches it in the clouds, and crunching it in the cloud really means a mixture of AI and algorithmic processing that creates these ladder lines. And in this graphic, you'll see a number of ladder lines. This gives context to viewers as to what's happening in the sailing race. In the past, without these ladder lines, you would not have a clue of which boat was coming first, depending on where you were standing. You'd have to be a sailing aficionado. Having these ladder lines now gives every viewer the opportunity to understand who's winning, who's behind, what they need to do to catch up. The delivery of speed of boats at the top of the wings allows you, you can see quite clearly there that Spain is not going to be catching Australia if Australia is going at that speed. We have lines that delineate between the fastest and the slowest. We basically deliver everything within a boundary, and that boundary then gives the course and the space in which the sailors are able to sail really clear guidelines. So all of these things give us the racing insights and contextualization so that anyone can start watching SailGP. Play this one.
But it's Slingsby that finds a gap in the middle of the line on Australia. Watch for that line to turn, watching for that line to turn white, and who's hit the timing right?
Australians, they do have the right of way. They do dip behind Switzerland, so it's France
Stick it in front of Australia. Oh, the Spanish have got too high. They pushed too wide.
In the lefty as well. Feels like we're sailing a touch high every now and then.
Turning left and heading back out there.
It's tricky. The right turn is not on for the last upwind.
And I'll just pause it there. This is where we mix sort of traditional graphic delivery and AI delivery and automated delivery. So where we see the tactician speaking, that is automated voice recognition and translation. So that happens virtually live, but we can hear every single person on this boat and what they say. And then we have tools or the technology to identify that person, what they've said, and immediately translate that into text so it can be understood by anyone. The Liveline AI is where those sensors are coming into play. There's both image recognition happening here and the weight, the stride, the positioning of these athletes. You can see with SailGP, it's very, very difficult to understand who's who on the boat. They're all wearing helmets, they're all wearing goggles, and they're all wearing the same uniform. So we wanted, as we're like developing other parts of our entertainment properties, and we're focusing on content about the athletes themselves, we want people who watch that content to be able to watch a race and then pick out their person. So we just did a Racing on the Edge episode about Giles Scott. And he is there as the driver. His face appears on the graphic and you're able to follow him around on the boat when we go to that AI camera. And then again, with those Liveline regular graphics, there's a few inclusions of AI there. So the red and the green rings that you saw around the boat, that is something that I desperately wanted. I could never understand who had right of way when two boats were approaching each other. As a non-sailor, it was always confusing when one boat got a penalty for being too close to another boat. So we put the red so that people could more clearly identify who was going to be in the wrong in an incident. But we still then go to the umpires and say, why did you make that decision? Because again, it's a judged sport in many respects. So then we have to talk about what is it that all of these graphics and data inclusions have done for us in the past couple of years. We always had Liveline graphics in the very sort of basic format and every year. And in fact, it's not even based on a year-by-year release. every time we come up with a new way of explaining or breaking down the sport or delivering more information that will help people watch the sport, we just add it as we go. Everything is done in-house. Our broadcast is in-house. The graphics are in-house. And basically, we now have a unit of people who are able to adapt without having to sort of pay more money to an agency or, ask permissions to another company whether or not they've got time to deliver. So it's really important for us that we're an in-house organization. But we don't do everything purely in-house. And there are a lot of companies that now have developed sort of AI tooling that helps us in a huge way. One of the things with Liveline Graphics I should also point out, and again, I mentioned it at the start, is it's very, very important for sponsors to have their logos recognized and viewers watching for a long period of time, keeping those eyeballs on, in focus on what they're advertising or what they're talking about. The Liveline graphics allow us, and I can go, let's see if this will let me go back again. The Liveline graphics, where you see SailGP around the boundary there, the Liveline graphics can change according to a timed schedule. So that could easily be Emirates if they're a venue sponsor. It could be Rockwell as an event sponsor. It could be KPMG, who is the Australian sponsor. It's Rolex is our title sponsor. They have a lot of inclusions in this augmented reality field of play. And there's something that's really important to us is if we didn't have this as augmented reality field of play, they would need to be plastic boards out at sea advertising. And because we change sponsors per venue, that would mean that would be single-use plastic or, a one-time use plastic board that would then go into a trash heap somewhere. So we are very, very clear that this augmented reality graphics and the way that we work fits in with our idea of overall carbon reduction for the sport. So we try and make it a mission to leave every place that we visit in a better state than we found it. But at the very least, we are not creating a huge amount of single-use plastics to advertise our sponsors at each venue. Going back here, I just want to then make that leap forward again to we do use tools, we do use other people. Grabyo is a really important tool for us. That's a cloud production tool. They are able to use AI tooling within their tool set to clip automatically or clip intelligently content out for us so that we can push it to social media in a faster way. Imogen is another one. Imogen is how we share our content with broadcasters. SBS in Australia or Fox in Australia would go to Imogen, look at our library of content available to them and pick out what they need to promote us in Australia. But Imogen also have AI tooling with that. And we are now using Imogen as a place to test out AI tagging. So you can search and find very, very quickly your results, but the AI will give you those results without us manually meta tagging everything. So again, it saves massive amounts of time and effort, and we'll be using that tool to display the AI tagging we've done in the background. And Greenfly is very much about dynamic filing. So Greenfly is a tool where it uses what we've delivered to Imogen or what we've clipped from Grabyo. It will take that and decide who needs to see that content by filing it into either athletes' social media accounts through a filing system. It doesn't go directly into their accounts, obviously. So an athlete who had a great event or knows they had a great moment, or a team who had a great event or moment, can go into their file and pull out all of the content that was related to them, their sponsors, their faces, and incidences throughout the day. So those things, just by applying them lightly, even now we're going much, much deeper down this road. We even use something called Slate. Slate is another tool that automatically resizes pieces of content so that it fits Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, in a way that we don't need to touch it. And again, reducing the friction between delivery of content and distribution content. And I guess the one major thing about social media and social platforms is speed is the key and consistency is the key. So we've been able to 7x our social viewership and 3x our social engagement by just being faster and more accurate with the content that people want to see when they want to see it. This strategy has bled over to YouTube as well. YouTube is our fastest growing platform at the moment. There's like a race between YouTube and TikTok. Important platforms to meet people where they are at the moment. So TikTok is obviously a very young audience, and YouTube is an audience of people who really enjoy watching content, obviously. So again, using these tools, and especially Grabyo, we're able to recreate pieces of content very, very quickly and publish that on the platform at a consistent rate so that we always have or constantly have fresh content appearing. Because we've had such a strong YouTube strategy, we're now seeing revenue grow on that platform. So in the context of media rights landscapes across the world changing, it's really, really important that you have a strategy that fits long-term future. And the future for us is making sure that YouTube is a viable and vibrant platform, and digital advertisers are starting to now look more to that platform to deliver for their audiences. This doesn't make, and I've got to make this, I think, quite clear, the developments in social media and the developments in digital distribution does not reduce our reliance and need to grow our linear audience. What we're seeing is a two-path approach, whereas linear might be sort of less technological advanced and a little bit more analog still. We as a growing league need both. As advertisers are trying to figure out, you know, what the future looks like, we use the data from YouTube in many, many cases to inform how we create the content for our linear channels. And a really, really good example of that is looking at and testing on YouTube how fans engage with the content. And that was when you go back to the beginning of the discussion, we were able to see and test on YouTube that fans really liked to see the chaos of that starting moment, those boats all descend on that first mark. And then as they round, we were able to keep those fans longer in those moments of jeopardy. So that YouTube experimentation and the data that we get from YouTube has really informed how we create highlights, especially for bigger broadcasters like CBS in the US. And what we've been able to deliver is what in the TV world we call a very sticky broadcast. So when we're programmed on CBS, we can pretty much will guarantee or rely on our sponsors being seen for the entire 45 minutes of that programming. We know people will come along and they'll start. One of the, and I often think like one of the biggest learning moments for me was understanding that SailGP, if we start the programming within 6 minutes, which is very, very different to how you start TV programming in general. But if we start our programming and get the racing done in the first, or racing started within that first 6 minutes, we know we'll be able to hold that audience until the point at which we can educate them and start storytelling about what's happening here and how this event is going to unfold. Most TV organizations, and if you're watching cricket, you'll start with a pre-show that will give you all of the information you need to continue watching that game as it unfolds. We're approaching SailGP in a different way, and I think that's because we're a sport in our fifth season, and we might go back to the other methodology of attracting audiences, But at the moment, this is what's working for us, and we work very closely with our linear broadcasters to make sure that we continue having a sticky broadcast. Driving engagement on TikTok is another one where data has been really, really important for us. And again, as a relatively new sport, new league, to screens everywhere, we've sort of grown up with TikTok, and TikTok is a platform that will change its algorithm or change its approach. I mean, almost every 6 months. It's almost a platform trying to keep up with the trends of what an under 25-year-old is watching on their screens. It's been, again, between TikTok and YouTube being slightly older audience, we are constantly experimenting. And again, there's some results that are occurring for us that you just wouldn't have predicted at the start of season 4. So TikTok, we took the approach to create a stream on TikTok to see if people would watch it. We found people were interested, but the stream in what we call 9 by 16, so a horizontal stream, which is this slide that you're seeing on your screen at the moment. This sort of stream was not working on TikTok at the start of season 4. So we adapted the stream so it showed the content in a vertical way. And we had a top screen and a bottom screen on TikTok. And we found what people really love to do on TikTok is ask, what the hell is going on here? And then we were able to develop really strong community engagement. That community engagement that we got on TikTok for season 5 started to wane a little bit as TikTok itself as a platform changed. So being a league that wants to keep up with the trends, we really took a look at what people were doing in general on TikTok and found that the better strategy for us to keep our audience alive and keep our audience highly engaged was to take CJ Perez, who you'll see here. She was the youngest ever sailor on an F50, and she's transitioned across to being our, social media guru, I would say. So she now presents TikTok in a very, I would say, Gen Z way. She will do her own commentary. She's not always focused on the racing. Sometimes she's focused on things that are happening around the racing. She will eat a bag of Cheetos, and she will have a very relaxed, very comfortable experience talking audiences through what's happening on SailGP. And we're finding this is the new way to engage audiences on that platform. And we're finding that there will be people who will very specifically only come to TikTok to watch this experience. So that's been, again, huge learning for us. It's very, very important that we have the data and we're staying in touch with how these platforms are changing. It's not linear TV. It's something that we constantly need to experiment with. And again, we get immediate feedback. We either get immediate feedback from fans who are supporting and saying they love it, or we see when someone doesn't love it because they switch off. So again, that data is as important to us as the 56 billion points of data coming off that boat in a race. And we don't we're not ending we don't end our experimentations or our desire to deliver differently through just our live line augmented reality graphics or the way we've set up our production, or even through the experimentation and growth that we've had through social channels. We're really interested in using this data in as many different ways as possible. For me, if I was to watch, I love watching SailGP on TV because you have the ladder lines. I'm not a sailor. And even after 3 years, I'm still like, why did that happen? Or how did that happen? Or I need the commentary to sort of talk me through the experience. When you're on site, you'll get the commentary, but you don't get the ladder lines on the water. So we have now developed an app within, the SailGP Insights. Using the SailGP Insights, we've created those ladder lines to appear on your mobile phone when you're at the venue. So each one of these boats we can track within a centimeter. That's how much data we're getting, like just huge amounts of data. We know where every boat is on the course within a centimeter. So when you hold up your phone using our app, you can literally track the progress of any of the boats that you put in front of you. So this is pretty revolutionary for us. It really helps that first-time viewer when they come to the event to process what's happening in the race by using their phone. And again, our latency is a blink of an eye. So there's no difference between holding up your phone and having that experience on site and looking with your bare eye directly to the boats. Our team is also developing, or has developed, the ability to transmit that content also onto a tabletop. We call it the tabletop experience. So you can have an augmented reality experience where the boats will literally sail around on your tabletop at home using, again, augmented reality to show that. And again, taking it all the way back to the beginning, 56 billion points of data from those sailboats will give you a lot of flexibility in content that we can create and technology that we can use. Onboard cameras, we have one AI camera at the moment. The second AI camera is super, super interesting. It's on a race marker, and that race marker is now driven entirely by AI. The data it receives is anomaly detection data. So the data it's receiving is able to tell the camera that there's a boat in trouble, that there is a boat that's experiencing something different than normal, that there is a boat that's not performing optimally. That camera, that mark camera, will now switch to that boat and focus on it. And in seconds or even minutes, because it might be predicting the beginning of something happening with that boat, it will capture content that our director couldn't possibly know is about to unfold or happen. So this is the camera that I think I'm most excited about at the moment. It's a camera that's really hard to integrate into our live director broadcast because obviously it's purely AI. It's operating on its own using pure data to direct it into direct it towards boats and problems that might be happening. And so we're using that more as a replay camera if it captures the moment, or we're using it on social media to capture a moment as it unfolds. So these cameras are the ones I guess we're most focused on at the moment to see, can they ever be delivered live? We think that perhaps an AI camera could perhaps listen to a director, but that's for our future experimentation to find out if we can get there. But at the moment, it feels revolutionary that this amount of data being processed into a camera that can operate completely autonomously based on data it has from each one of those 125 sensors on the boats. So that's where we're at the moment, and happy to take any questions from you.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. That is truly, truly fascinating. And thank you very much for those insights. There was actually already one question that came in when you were talking about the cloud remote production versus the AI production. Can you share what's the percentage, like if you look at your broadcast, what percentage is produced in your studio versus what percentage is actually automatically generated through those workflows that we were talking about?
Everything that comes through the fiber heads to the studios instantaneously. The AI content is not something that we would put, as I said, also it's operating in its own mindset. So we don't use that instantaneously, and we're not using it a ton at the moment. The AI graphics that you saw where people are running across the boats, We can use them instantaneously, but one important thing about AI is that we're training it, right? So it's not always correct. So while we're in the process of training the AI to recognize each athlete, their stride, their height, their weight on the boat, and their movements and their positioning, we still need manual input in that moment. Will we ever use 100% AI to create a broadcast? I don't think so. I think humans like to follow perhaps the illogical, and I think AI is incredibly logical at the moment. And I think you either have to go 100% AI. If all the cameras were AI, it would talk to each other. Where you have human intervention, it starts to stop the flow. I can't tell you at the moment, this AI camera that we have on the markers is following anomalies. I don't know what the anomalies are, and it has no way at the moment to tell me where those anomalies might be. So our director is looking at that camera as another viewpoint that you can't get with a human. You can't get it with human intervention. So that camera is more of a replay camera that's augmenting the overall broadcast rather than replacing anything on the broadcast. And I think as we go into AI, there are conversations about ethical AI and the development of talent and younger people. And we are not immune to thinking about that. Like, it's super, super important that we're operating with an ethical view to how we do things.
Yeah. And there was also a second part to that question. So is your broadcast then also region specific in terms of the sponsor logos that you might present in the broadcast in different regions?
Yeah. So the AI graphics, sorry, the augmented reality graphics, which is Liveline. When you're in France, you'll see them in French. When you're in Japan, you'll see them in Japanese. Depending on how many feeds we want to send out, those graphics are completely 100% localized to the audience that they're delivered to. In New Zealand, I believe we have potentially different sponsors. You know, sailing is such a big sport there. So we can deliver, you know, some of our sponsors want, or some of our broadcasters want a particular intro into SailGP. We do a lot of CGI at the moment. So with that CGI, with that augmented reality, with the AI overlays and all the rest of it, you can change something in the moment. So sometimes we'll just record a couple of sequences so we can deliver sponsor obligations that can go into packages that are created later on.
Yeah. Have other sports reached out to you? Like, for instance, has the Olympic Broadcasting Corporation reached out to you to transfer maybe some of those things that you have experimented with into Olympic broadcasting of sailing events?
We can't speak on behalf of, of the Olympics, but let's say we're close.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. And the next question from Will comes about. So he's a novice. He's new to sailing, and his question is around the drivers on the boat. Do they have access to any of that data and the broadcast feed?
They have screens. The strategist at the back of the boat has a screen on their wrist, and they get all the data. Not only do they get all of their own data, they get all the data from the rest of the crews as well. It's a one design series, and I think that's probably a really, really good point to focus on, because we often see new teams come into SailGP and they're very focused on their own data, and they'll go into the analytics room, the Oracle analytics room, and they'll ask about their own data. And then after a period of time, they'll realize they actually have access to everyone's data. Australia is the Australian team is, in my opinion, not being biased at all, but it is the best sailing team in the league at the moment, and has won the league 3 times. So the best thing a new team coming into SailGP could do was have a look at their data.
Yeah.
And the data analysts are more than happy to sit down and explain what Tom Slingsby, as the driver of that boat, does well. And you'll see his data. He turns the wheel less. He makes less maneuvers. He wastes less time. But it's also in the setup of the boat. There's something like, and the tech guys tell me this, there's something like 3 billion different ways you could possibly set up these boats. So the data on how other teams have set up their boat is very specific to them and their preferences, but other teams can learn from what they've done. Do they ride higher? Do they do they, you know, when they come off the foils, you know, what processes do they put into place to get back up and foiling again? So the data is just so important. Like, I always look at it from purely like the technological advancements we have in broadcast and how that's really, I'd say, you know, sped us into the future and increased our audiences at a rapid rate. But from the sailor's perspective, a new team coming in is like at a massive disadvantage. These are like Formula One cars, and they've got into that Formula One car the first time in their first week of racing. And then they've got to figure it out. The fastest way they can figure it out is by really analyzing, not just looking at the data, but analyzing the data based on what their crew's needs are and how they can shortcut and figure out what the best crews are doing on you know.
Yeah, so effectively this openness and then the motto could almost be a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no point. You know, the secrecy just creates gaps. So having a completely open design, and this is, I think, very much a learning from Larry Ellison and Russell Coutts on what was great about the America's Cup experience for them and what was the hard bits. And I think their desire for data to be the keys, one of the key storylines in how we operate this league. You know, works for us all and has many, many benefits.
Yeah. So another question that came in from Tim was, can you share sort of like a ballpark cost in terms of what the development of all of this technology has cost you? And maybe even then, what if somebody has made that investment, what is the cost and the operational cost to deliver say a race?
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap. It's a multi-million-dollar series. It's not something that has come at low cost.
Yeah,
I think what we've been very good at is like translate the quality of what we're delivering and what we're able to deliver, and the personalization and the localization and the delivery for sponsors has led to, I guess, fairly large sponsorship deals on top of those costs. So it's really hard for me to pinpoint. Yes, it's not cheap.
No.
But the spending of money in developing these graphics and the spending of the graphics weren't just developed for SailGP. They've been developed in the past for the America's Cup. So some of it is adoption of existing technology and just taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
And it's there's a couple of different things for me. We bring everything in-house because we're faster, more nimble, and able to save money. So we are saving money on one hand, but on the other hand, is fundamentally not inexpensive to deliver this.
Yeah.
But then the delivery metrics are we have sponsors and people who are buying teams who want to be involved in it. So there's a quid pro quo there.
Yeah, that's understood. Another question that came in, and this is interesting because you talked about the open sharing. Could you imagine a time where the data would be made open source or publicly available, and then you have sort of people that are creative, content creators, or even data analysts work with that data and produce other things on a platform that you provide?
It's all open. If you use our app, SailGP app,
Yeah.
you have access to every single word said on the boat, every camera that's on the boat, every feed. You can actually direct your own coverage if you want to. Sometimes people have their running commentary or the voices from one boat with a different boat. I mean, the people who are super, super into SailGP will use our Insights app and run their entirely own broadcast as a second screen.
Yeah.
And that's some of the difficulty for our commentators. They have so much access to information that, so we have to make decisions. And what we really hope and the next level for us is broadcasters who a lot of things happened to him while he was at SailGP. He states he wishes SailGP had started when he was 20 years old, given the drama of the event. And he was in the US team. He was asked to helm the US team. New owners came in and they dumped him. And so it's his, like, a little bit his story on how he's rebuilt another team with his close sponsors, Red Bull, and it's fascinating, but it's very, very behind the scenes. And it's really the story of a man who's sacrificed everything his whole life, and his career wasn't going to end on his terms. So it's the resurrection of his I guess dreams to end
passion,
on his own terms.
No, that's a good point to end on. So, Melissa, thank you very much for this fascinating presentation. As I said, I walked away and I was like, wow, the fast sequence of you experimenting, getting that feedback loop and closing that, and then making decisions based on what customers actually prefer, is also for the startups and all the businesses in our network such an inspiration to see. So thank you again for taking the time and sharing your insights. And for everybody on our call, I thank you for tuning in to our webinar tonight. Thank you very much. And if you again want to find out more about the ASTN, take up a membership, please visit our website. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.